What today is the 11th? Is that right?
2 weeks.
Yeah, so 2 weeks. So I think we've got the proposal list very, very close to nailed down, if it's not already nailed down. Kenny has been managing that, but Kenny is under the weather right now. Evan, do you have any more data on that? Hey, Ed.
Yeah, so I've got a ballot form which has the stuff that we've been talking about on it. I don't know if this is a complete, like, finalized version of the ballot. It could still be changed. We could add things so people could want to change the language on things. But I can share screen and show you guys the ballot that
Yeah, go for it.
I'm looking at here. All right, can you guys see this?
Coming. There we go.
Yep.
You guys can see it?
Yep.
Okay, so this is kind of what we got so far. This is not final set in stone, but this is pretty close. So the first part that's going to be on the ballot is some basic information about how to fill it out, which you kind of have to do. There's going to be a candidates list, and this is everybody, unless, I mean, if people want to pull out, they can, but I think this is the people that we're dealing with. The way that you fill out this part of it, we've been discussing the exact procedure for this, is a Condorcet, or I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. It's like a French guy, so Condorcet or something. But you fill out with a 1 being your most preferred candidate, and then 2, 3, 4, and so on in order of preference. Does that make sense to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And then, I'm sorry, what's that?
This would be done through a line survey. Is that still planned?
We're planning on both an electronic version and a paper version present at the meeting. Both. I think Greg has more about the electronic side.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, I do.
The second thing on the ballot is voting on items, and this is probably the part that's likely to change if people want to change the items here. We've got rock circulation, whether or not to sell rocks to non-members, how we are planning on locking up tokens, or if we're planning on doing that, conversion process, whether or not to do an airdrop, and about staking tokens. And if anybody has any other questions or any other items that they want to put on this, they ideally would have already done it, but we can still add stuff if people want to add stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And in addition, we should so there's this the electronic stuff to talk about, yeah, well let's go there first. Yeah, I think that's the right order. So with respect to the electronic stuff, what we are planning to do is have addresses associated with the options for the outcomes. And then people can send dust to those addresses from an address that they have personally associated with the co-op. So that means that between now and then, members have to DM me from Discord on the address they want to use if they want to be involved in the electronic voting. So if you're a co-op member, then you have been vetted and are a part of Discord, so you can DM Lighthouse or one of the other temperance marked temperance role participants in Discord with the Ethereum address that you want to use for electronic voting. And then you will send a dust amount of rock to the options that you want to vote for. If we want to do stack ranking, then we can provide you with information about rank them in terms of the dust. If people would find it useful, we can create a small web page, which would allow them to just click the options and then sort of in English language. So a ballot form that looks like this on a web page, and then you can click the options, and then it will generate for you the list of transactions that you need to commit. If people find that useful, then we will go ahead and put that together. But I need to hear back on that no later than Friday, because we have to go ahead and do the development of that web page in time for the 24th. If anyone has any better thoughts on how to do it at this point, I'm all ears. But this is kind of what we can get done in the short period of time frame that we have to the members meeting right now.
Yeah, it sounds a little bit complicated for people who can't come. What happened to the direction that Kenny was going in terms of creating a line survey?
Yeah, so we have a SurveyMonkey solution as well. I'm simply saying, for those people who want to participate in crypto, it's actually not all that hard, right? For each option, there's an address. You send from an Ethereum address a small amount of rock to that address, like 0.0000001 rock to the option that you're interested in voting for. That's not hard. The only hard part is the participant that wants to do it that way needs to communicate to us through Discord the Ethereum address that they're going to be using for voting. So
how do they do ranking?
Again, so if they want to do ranking, then you send more dust to your favorite option, a little bit less dust to your next favorite option, a little bit less dust to, and so on. So if there are 4 options to be ranked, you would send 7 zeros and a 4, 0.7 zeros and a 4 to your favorite option, 0.7 zeros and a 3 to your next favorite, and so on.
Greg, another way to do that might be just based on timestamps of the sends.
Do what? What's the reference of that?
Oh, so if the first option you send first, and then send another transaction to the second option, so you can do it based on timestamp.
Yeah. Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, I'd rather do it with it's absolute. There's no possibility of confusion for the amount of dust. There might be some possibility of confusion for timestamps. But yeah, that's also, it can also be made to work. Did that answer your question, Jim?
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, sure. Cool. All right. So then moving right along, let's see, what else have we got on the membership meeting? Well, one thing is we have an evening of entertainment the night before. So I think it's the Finkelstein Castle. Is that correct, Ed?
That's correct. Charles Finkelstein will be our host. This is in the Woodinville, Washington area, east of Seattle. And I'm going to put together an Evite for that. And Greg is going to play Kelstone, and there'll be some other musicians as well. They have a great hall as their living room, essentially, and set up in the
Really?
no, really, and it's set up in the the proportions of the golden mean. So beautiful room and beautiful space.
Very, very good. Very good. Awesome. Okay, so is there anything else we need to talk about with respect to the membership meeting? What people need to be aware of is if they have any more items on the agenda, please get them to us right away, because we have to finalize that, because we have to get addresses associated with each of the options, and we also have to have the Survey Monkey style voting mechanism. And then if people really, really want a web page and sort of English language web page with the options listed out, which will then generate the transaction list for electronic voting using dust levels of rock, then they need to let us know by Friday.
So Jake asked a question about, is there a reason not all 9 non-binary voting options are a ranked choice? I think we were originally planning on doing that, but if there's only 2 or 3 options, it gets more complicated to do a ranked choice, and there's not any difference. Like if there's 2 items, there's literally no difference. If there's 3, it's a marginal difference.
Yeah.
I think part of the problem is that with the with 3 choices, one and 2 have a majority together, they still lose. Never mind. Sorry.
When I just want to understand more clearly about the timing of the vote and the items being voted on. So when is the deadline to get votes or get the items listed, and then I assume the board would then finish the final wording and the order of voting. And then Greg, I understand it's your intent that all the voting occurs in the meeting itself. Am I correct so far?
That's correct. All the voting occurs in the meeting itself.
Okay, so then how will proxies be handled?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what you and I were talking about yesterday is that people, if they want to nominate a proxy for themselves, that they DM one of the temperance labeled members of Discord with their proxy nomination. I think that's as secure as we can get in the time we've got.
And then how will and then I think Kenny set up an evite. Is that correct for the member meeting itself, so we can know how many people are going to be there and so forth?
That's my understanding. I'll have to double check with Kenny.
He did. I got it and have responded to it.
Okay, got it. And so is that evite link out on Discord? It may be.
I'm not
I
sure.
don't know. I haven't seen it.
Okay, we'll have to get that advertised. All right, thanks.
Yeah, good.
HJ asked, what's the deadline for proposing items to vote? It was supposed to be basically today.
Yeah.
We're probably going to have to say the final version is going to be 1 week in advance of the meeting and not 2.
Yeah. I think that was my call on that as well, Ken. So it gets in by 11 o'clock on the 18th of October, or it doesn't get in. 11 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time on the 18th of October, or it doesn't get in.
There's one other thing for the meeting, which is the committees. We're actually, if you're interested in being on one of the 3 committees, we need you to send us something saying that you're interested. There's like Kenny was talking about a sign-up sheet where people will go and basically say that they're interested. Yeah.
The other thing that we need to address in talking about this is we need to talk about the issue of quorum. So the board decided that there needs to be a quorum for special meetings, but for the membership meeting, there does not need to be a quorum because the membership meeting has been advertised a year in advance, right? Everybody knows when the membership meeting is. So that's that's the rationale there. we're a little bit concerned that this year people won't, because it was so close to a number of other events, that people might have a hard time getting there. So we wanted to make sure that we didn't, on our very first membership meeting, not be able to have any votes at all.
Yeah, the purpose of the quorum requirement is to prevent a stealthy meeting where a small number of members do something sneakily.
Yeah.
That's why you have quorum requirements. And it doesn't really make sense for a regular meeting because there's really no chance of that happening at a regular meeting.
Yeah, that's right.
Meeting, still have a quorum requirement.
Because of these problems, it would seem to me that, using the mechanism of authenticating people through the membership site and accepting votes in advance of the meeting would give us much, many fewer people would be screwed.
Possibly, but the real issue here is that we want vigorous debate at the membership meeting, and it just as with the Constitutional Convention, it was because people were able to debate and maybe change the wording that various things could go through, and that's really what the membership meeting is all about. We come together at least once a year, in as open a forum and as high bandwidth a forum as we can. And we vote on the issues, and if it turns out that there's a better wording or a better way of framing an issue, then that's happens in that venue.
Well, how about if we have a live Zoom and anybody who can't make it can join the Zoom and raise their hand?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're definitely providing a live Zoom, so for sure. I just don't know if that can.
Well, you can still vote electronically even if you're not attending in person, right? So
that's correct. Yeah.
It's not a.
I mean, we could also test out the poll function in Zoom. Polling can be done in Zoom as well.
Yeah.
So I just don't know how secure that is.
Yeah, it just says polling on your screen. Everyone should see the word polling on Zoom. So, but again, that's a problem of who is Coin Interview? Am I
right? That's what I was concerned about. Exactly.
Yes.
Well, I'm concerned about amalgamating like 4 or 5 different channels that people can vote through.
Yeah, that's also a concern.
There should be paper ballots. There should be one electronic vote system.
No, unfortunately, at least for this one, because we don't have the crypto and the SurveyMonkey integrated, there will be 2.
Okay.
Yeah, but that after this, there's only gonna be one electronic. Yeah. Okay. Anything else on the membership meeting before we move on?
Yeah, are the voting records of members going to be like public record to the co-op members, or how is the privacy of that vote going to work?
Yeah, that's a great question. And like, for example, that's one of the reasons why we're allowing people. So we want to protect privacy here. And that's one of the reasons why, at least with the crypto solution, we're having the people who want to use an Ethereum address associated with their membership ID provide the Ethereum address that they want to use, as opposed to, say, using the ROC address, at the time that they commit their vote. So we want to make this as private as we can. There are some constraints here that are hard to get around, but the intent is to make it as private as we can, so people can vote their conscience without feeling like they're going to be subject to undue pressure. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
Cool. All right. Can we move on? Oh, Jim.
On the before the meeting on the 24th and on the 25th, it would be great if someone in the area said, we can meet here, or, this is going on or something.
Oh, you mean like on the 23rd?
Well, the 23rd, I was thinking the 24th during the day and the 25th. The 23rd, I get in about noon.
Okay. So what is the purpose of extending this extra time?
It's for members to meet.
Okay.
There'll be a lot of members.
Understood.
There'll be a lot of members in the area doing independent things.
Sure. So for the 25th, I'm going to let people self-organize. For the 23rd, we have the evening event, and I can make. I plan to make something available before the evening event. Provide a venue for people to socialize and just get to know each other a little bit. So hopefully that will be so in the late afternoon. So around 3, people can get together, and then we have the evening event at the Finkelstein Castle, and then we have the time at the membership meeting on the 24th. Cool. So I think that's it. Along these lines, I want to mention that Vlad has proposed a governance. Hang on a second. I'm just finding his email right now. Okay, a governance forum, and where he proposes a kind of that the community comes together and formulates a constitution, which is quite interesting because I suggested a similar thing in a previous incarnation of RChain. So I think this is a great idea, and I want people to begin to think about that and maybe have that as a point of discussion during the socialization around the 23rd and 24th. So more will be coming on that, but I just want to prime people's thoughts around a kind of governance, setting up the principles of governance. And maybe even formulating a constitution. I think that's a very, very good idea. Okay, I know that everyone here is excited to hear about technical updates. I was wondering if Meta, if you wanted to talk a little bit about some technical updates.
Absolutely, I'd be happy to share. So in the past week since we last met, I'm happy to report that the GitHub reorganization was completed without any issues. So we now have a simplified single RChain repository under which all the technical artifacts will live henceforth. That's proceeding very nicely. We've also got some new code commits that are coming in for the storage layer and the communications layer. So that's, Griff and Chris's work respectively. So you'll be able to see their work once it's committed to GitHub in those subdirectories under the RChain repository. Additionally, I'm happy to report that we hit our first milestone, Roscala.void. She took her first breath on Tim's computer. We are going to have a demo ready for you at the next member meeting. Tim will present Roscala. She's very, very simple right now because this is her first milestone. But we did hit that milestone. I'm very happy about that. That also includes the continuous integration, basic unit test framework, just all the good stuff that you need to really accelerate the speed at which we develop code moving forward. So we're very pleased about that milestone. I've also been doing an extensive amount of planning with respects to the subsequent Roscala milestones. We have approximately 5 milestones in the ROSCALA project at a very high level. They are the void, which is the first one which we've completed. ROSCALA.transition speaks about all the transition functions. So that's going to be all the opcodes that are defined in a specific section of the code. Those will all be ported, as well as some of the other larger base classes. And then from transition, we move to .primitive, where we'll be creating all the primitive definitions within the virtual machine. And then we've got ROSCALA.FFI, where we'll be working on the foreign function interface. And by the time we hit the primitive milestone, we anticipate we will start be in a place where we can start integrating the communications and storage tiers. This is our high level thinking as to when we'll start kind of putting everything together into a nice package. And then after we hit the primitive milestone, I suspect we can start using the terminology of node, right? So that'll start bringing the first concept of an empty node into being. And then we have several milestones once we get into talking about node and compiler, where we can start talking about, building in the contracts and other layers on top of that. So planning is coming along very nicely. Still lots of open questions that we're looking to gain clarity on, and we're hoping to basically button those up during the retreat. So doing a lot of retreat planning as well. Any questions?
First of all, thank you. That was awesome. And just double checking. So we're going to get a demo, even though it's mostly uninteresting, next Wednesday at the Hangout.
That's correct. Yes, that's correct. We'll get a demo.
Fantastic. That's really good news. Let's see. Yeah. So I wanted to amplify what you just said. So we've identified some things that we want to nail down for the Rolang specification. Kent, Joe, Mike, and myself are working on those largely. Also, we've begun to stratify some of the feature development on Rolang, so that people can expect the evolution of the language spread out over the different releases. So currently we're making judgment calls about what's in Mercury versus what goes into Venus. And one of the biggest ones is that we fully believe that there should be a usable functional sublanguage of Rolang. But getting that design correct, one is difficult. It's very time consuming, but also two, as soon as you have a sublanguage that's close to what people are familiar with, people will just jettison the rest of the language and program in the sublanguage. And so we have to prevent that. We have to really help people move over into process-oriented and protocol-oriented programming first, and then provide them with a means to ease that process, that development methodology as they move forward. Additionally, so we have a mechanism whereby user-defined data structures can be given interpretations with respect to the monadic constructs. So the map, unit, and the basically all the stuff that, and the join. So all the stuff that goes into the desugaring of the for comprehension. So we have a template-based mechanism for that, and that will be coded up for Mercury at the compiler level, and then for Venus, because we have reflection in Rolang, we have a very, very sophisticated macro, or the potential for a very sophisticated macro system. So we'll be releasing that in the Venus, and then people will be able to build their own templates rather than have that embedded in the compiler. So we're getting good, crisp scope definition, and people should be excited about the roadmap of the feature sets for Rolang. I know I'm getting pretty excited. It's going to be a programming language I really want to program in. In particular, I'm getting very excited about programming the Casper stuff in Rolang. So in this regard, we had a great Casper stand-up this past Monday. Everybody was there. The gang was all there. Vitalik was there. Vlad was there. Danny, Nate, and I'm blanking. But everybody who's been making significant progress and contribution to the Casper repo was there. Yoichi was there, for example. So it was a very productive conversation. And I just want to say that the co-op is going to be supporting Danny Bryan in cleaning up Vlad's repo in preparation for porting his correct by construction algorithm to Rolang contracts. And that feels like the right sequence of things because people will have a repo that they can go look at and say, okay, this is the algorithm. I don't believe in Python as a good way to do executable documentation. And so the very, very next thing to do is to get the executable documentation into Rolang contracts, which we can then type check for correctness. So that's what's underway with respect to the Casper development. Let's see, are there any other development stuff? Oh, I did want to give a shout out to Dan Connolly. I really appreciated his engagement on the theory of graphs work. That was really fun to see the Haskell implementation. I haven't seen the Idris implementation, but his engagement helped me spot a couple of typos in the spec. And gave me a chance to think a little bit more deeply about the spec in terms of some of its applications. For those people who are interested in how the larger scope of RChain and in particular the ladle algorithm, I want to mention a few things in connection with the theory of graphs and other things. But before I do that, let me stop because you've been given a lot of update and just see if there are any questions about anything that we've talked about so far in the technical updates. RChain and in particular the ladle algorithm. That was fun. Satellite delay.
Flashback to the past.
That's right. That's min headroom, 5 minutes in the past.
Deja vu all over again.
Okay, all right. Well, if there's no questions about what we just said, I'm just going to use the theory of graphs stuff as a proxy for some of the things that we can do with the ladle algorithm that are going to make RChain particularly interesting. So once you have a linguistic construct for graphs, in other words, you can write graphs down essentially as little tiny programs, then you want to be able to pick out subtypes is the technical term, but sub collections of graphs that are interesting for a particular domain. And what Ladle does is it allows you to define those in terms of the syntax that was devised for representing graphs in the first place. So essentially, all the constructors for building out the graphs become formulae or constraints for picking out graph shapes. Now, if you think about it, over the last decade, I guess now, graph databases have become something of significant interest. And we get graph databases almost for free. Why is that? Well, because you can use the syntax to describe specific instances, and then you can use the type language that is derived from Ladle as the query language to search for graphs. Essentially, those graphs that are that you've collected in a particular store that type check according to the type or the formula that you've described are the ones that that are returned by the query. So types equal query, and that insight is really important because what it says is that anything that you can design a term language for, we can devise a query system for. And this was the original purpose of the Ladle stuff. So what does this mean for Rolang contracts? So we imagine a time in the not too distant future when Rolang and RChain is very, very successful. And what does that mean? Well, it means that there are lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of contracts. And how do you find contracts? Well, what if you wanted to find contracts not on the basis of metadata or the name, which may be very misleading, but you want to find contracts on the basis of what they do and how they are structured. For example, this contract never has any more than 3 threads running, or this contract always makes sure to update state before servicing another client request. These are structural and functional characterizations of contracts, and we can write those down as Rolang types, and those types can turn into queries against a repository. What repository? How about the blockchain, where the contracts are stored? So that's just one application of the Ladle algorithm that we are not just contemplating, but are actively building toward. This has extreme consequences in terms of just-in-time assembly of contract code on the basis of client requests. So that's, again, another example of the kind of thing that we can do with the Ladle algorithm. And there are many others. But so I'm hoping that people are beginning to, with this discussion and with others, I hope that people can begin to see some of the import of what the Ladle algorithm provides. It's not just for generating type systems. It also generates storage mechanisms and query systems as an example of some of the applicability here. So let me stop and see if people have any questions about that, or if that's made contact with folks.
No, to some extent, I'm wondering what's new. I mean, this is sort of like seems like the dream that you've been giving us for a long time. But I guess I'm wondering how this compares to the prologue term type searching, or even semantic searching mechanisms.
Yeah, so the prologue term searching has to do with being able to embed this in the process language. So we can convert the type-based queries into prologue queries as a part of a compilation process, and then that makes contact with the storage in a way that's efficient. The algorithm that I've described is essentially brute force, right? You do the type check. But you can statically compile that type check down into these prologue terms, and then that becomes a more efficient search mechanism. So that's the second piece of the puzzle. And so I'm glad you asked that question. I agree with you. It's, what's new, sort of, kind of, but there are people out there who haven't understood this. I think there are many people, and we're going to have to repeat this message in greater and greater specificity and detail for the next 3 to 5 years, because I don't think that it's widely understood. I remember when I described this to oh gosh, what's the guy's name at Google? Peter. Oh, I can't remember his name now. Basically, one of the giants in AI, and he didn't even understand it as a search mechanism.
Norvig?
Peter Norvig, thank you. That's exactly right. He didn't understand how a formula language becomes a search mechanism. And he's unlike Jacob. I think Peter Norvig would describe himself as very, very tech. and he wasn't able to get it on the first go. So Jacob, I'm glad you spoke up. The importance here is that we can express queries that simply can't be expressed currently. So think about searching GitHub, right? Right now you can't write, or since you're non-tech, GitHub maybe isn't the best example. But GitHub is a gigantic repository in the sky of computer programs, right? How do you find what you're interested in GitHub? Right now, that's a social process, right? It's difficult to search that multi-terabyte repository for interesting artifacts, except by knowing somebody who knows somebody. And that's an error-prone process, and a process that's going to leave a lot of the interesting artifacts on the table or in the repo without being investigated. Here we're providing a mechanism whereby people can search the entire repository in terms of the structure and function of the programs that are stored there. And now the other piece of the puzzle is to recognize that in the blockchain world, contracts are not going to be stored in GitHub, which is a centralized mechanism. They're going to be stored on the blockchain, which is very, very good, because GitHub could tomorrow say, we think our service is very valuable and we would like to charge you an arm and a leg now to get your code back out. Right? Not that it would be necessarily good for business, but there are ways in which there are failure modes here that are not pleasant to contemplate. And so getting code and other kinds of things up on the blockchain is very important. And then once we do that, what's the mechanism for searching? What's the mechanism for finding what you need? So here are some other examples of the kind of thing that you might want to be able to do. It turns out that if you go read Ehudi Shapiro, who's a very prominent computer scientist, or Regev Aviv, who's a very prominent biologist, or Luca Cardelli, you'll find that it's easy to represent, or there's significant expressive power in representing biological signaling networks using the process calculi. And so a lot of people have done a lot of work on representing these signaling pathways in the cell using the process calculi. Now, to the extent that there are these boutique databases with ad hoc representations of these signaling networks. And these signaling networks will ultimately lead to different ways to represent both the cause and cure for diseases. And now what you'd like to be able to do is, on the basis of these representations, say, find me a substance which will prevent this signaling network from getting into this state where the state is a disease state. Right? So that represents a mechanism for researching medicine, researching cures. So this is something we can actually affect with the ladle algorithm. We can actually write down that kind of query. You can't, in existing databases right now, you cannot write that kind of query down, let alone execute it. So hopefully that answers your question. Okay, cool. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. Let's see, any other things we want to talk about while we're all together? Any questions from the community? Any thoughts, concerns? Anything at all?
I could give a small update about the member work.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, I will share my screen. So, this is for the month of September, sorry. The members defined a budget of $36,000 about. And here are all the items that we've been working on. For example, this one, the Google Form membership registration. It goes to GitHub. And then it shows the discussion about what we were thinking about it. So actually there have been people working on it. You see it here, for example, 4 participants. Okay, so the budgets were set by 3 people, and they can vary on each issue. And then we get I created an awful lot of spreadsheets, as you see. This is my source spreadsheet where all the people are listed and what they get and how much they will earn that month and so. And for example, I can show you how the rewards have been done. So you have, for example, then DCKC, well known on GitHub. He's been working on these subjects, and he will get a total of 8,000 ROC about it, or this in dollars. So this for each participant on issues, they have all the rewards calculated. I could show you, I'm also generating the invoices for that. Where I can show you one invoice. This, for example, the invoice of Kit Blake, and he's been working on an awful lot of subjects, and with small amounts. You see $27 converts to so much ROC, etc. And then a total goes down. So he would, for September, he would earn like $1,000 or 5,000 ROCs. So for him, it's easy to copy these items into invoice that generates for his business. And then he sends it to me, and I will start the payment through the multi-signature wallet for that we've set up with Kenny. So I propose a payment, and Kenny confirms it, and then it will be paid. So that's about the process what we are working on. And it's going better and better, and we are getting more and more organized, and more people are joining to work for RChain. on several items, and I'm very happy that's going like that. That's my update.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I think this is also good evidence that people are, that we're able to work in a decentralized fashion, which is very nice. And you brought to mind, HJ, something that I should have mentioned at the top of the hour when we were talking about the co-op business. So Kenny, Evan, Lisa, Ian, and myself got together to talk about the consolidating the co-op assets into a treasury. And Kenny has a proposed solution for the Ethereum assets, and we got some hands-on experience with his proposal, and it seemed good. We'll do a practice run, I think, in a week or so, and then we will go ahead and consolidate the all of the Ether assets from the different addresses where they're currently being held in under this multi-sig treasury apparatus. So that I think that's quite good, and we'll do something similar for the Bitcoin assets. Let's see. I think that's kind of it on that update. Evan, did you have any other thoughts about or comments to make about that?
No, it seems like we have a pretty workable multi-sig solution. But yeah, we got to do a practice run. Got to make sure that mission critical things work before you do them for real.
Indeed. So yeah, so I felt good about that solution, and we'll do something similar for the BTC, and then that process will. I'll be able to sleep easier about all of that rather than having to spread my attention over a whole bunch of different things. So if anybody has any questions, comments, or concerns about what the board is doing there, please let us know. And we've got about 8 minutes left in the meeting, so if anyone has any questions about that now, please don't hesitate to speak up.
So I showed up late. Is there anything you'd like to hear from me in this session?
Yes, sure. Yeah. Speak up.
Okay. Just development is proceeding apace. Meta has been helping us get organized and productive. We are going to move from a system where we tried to choose stuff that we know we can finish to a system where we allocate stuff that we expect to get around 70% of it done, with stretch goals as part of every sprint. And we're going to try and grow our abilities as developers to increase how much we can get done at a go. We're also going to start doing more intensive code reviews, in the sense of when a PR is sent out, it should, unless it's absolutely trivial, it should have a paragraph to a page of text explaining what the system is, what it does, what the concerns are that the reviewer should be looking at. And similarly, the reviewer should be able to read that, think about how they would implement it themselves, and compare that to what was done, to give not only feedback on the particular bugs that may be found, but also on the whole style of the thing. So we expect to get multiple rounds of interaction between the developer and the reviewer. So some process-oriented changes that we hope will help us become more productive. We have a few more developers coming on that'll help us get, work faster, get more done at a time, and some very good candidates that we're interviewing at the moment that we hope will join us as well. So we're excited about how things are going.
Are you guys still interested in potentially working with A-Flight? Ed interviewed with them a little while ago.
With whom?
A-Flight, they're a developing firm at Pencilworks that I work with. We spoke with them a couple months ago, I think, when we were still sorting some stuff out.
I haven't heard of them before. So if there's an opportunity to get more teams involved, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, especially since they work locally with me. So why don't I'll restart that conversation, I guess.
Greg, do you have any take on how that would work?
No, I mean, this is the first I haven't thought about it in quite some time. So let's just see let's see how that goes. I mean, I thought the A-Flight thing was largely for holdings development, but I'm, for sure we can explore the co-op engagement there. Also, I think people should know that Ed's name is not on the list for directors. So Ed, did you want to speak about that at all?
Well, I have no choice now. Yeah. So I let the several of the board members know that I would likely not run. I need to shift focus to RChain Holdings and Lively Gig, where I have these other two organizations to run, and my focus on the co-op has been great, but it's been a big time sink, and so we need to start fostering conversations around holdings, around ecosystem, startups, joint ventures, subsidiaries, and build that out. And that's going to really take my full attention. So, I'll still be very involved in the co-op in terms of attending these calls pretty regularly and offering my opinion. So I won't be going anywhere from a presence perspective, but I won't have the concern about, is the co-op doing everything right, so to speak, because I'll have these other concerns on my mind.
So you're going from likely to definitively not, is that right?
Definitively not, yeah.
Take you off the ballot then.
Thanks. I'll be around.
Cool.
So last question for you guys. Who is watching the season premiere of Mr. Robot tonight?
They had a great release in New York where they launched a cryptocurrency. I don't know if you saw that at Comic-Con.
No, I didn't. I haven't followed the series. So. But I did go see Blade Runner 2049 and was thrilled. That was awesome.
Oh, I've been looking forward to that. Thanks, Jacob, for your comment, by the way.
Yeah. Well, we really appreciate your work.
If anybody wants to get together in Seattle and watch Blade Runner, I'm down, because Spain, I don't have that choice right now because all the theaters are in Spanish.
Good idea. Movie night.
If I think I'm going to attend the blockchain conference in Dubai in the next 2 weeks. So if anyone wants to reach out and create some possibilities of collaboration with folks over there, please let me know.
Okay, for sure. Thanks. That's a good connection there, for sure. Absolutely. Awesome. So I think we're ready to wrap up with a minute to spare. Anything else we need to talk about? Silence is golden. I love it. All right, guys, we will talk to you next week.
See ya.
Yeah.
Bye.